Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC. This is also streaming on nccradio.org. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com on all your favorite platforms. This program is repeated Sunday evenings at 11 p.m. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And of course, the reason why I say that is because it all depends when you are listening. And today we have very, very important things to share with you. So hello on the radio, hello online, and hello to the world. Talk about the world. I am now in the middle of the 4-day special convention, international convention of the Chabad emissaries, the Chabad rabbis from across the world who gather once a year. And this year, because of the events on October the 7th in the land of Israel, the entire program is focused on the current affairs and the opportunities for us to strengthen each other and to go back to our communities, to uplift ourselves and our communities during these very, very difficult times. And our entire program today will be dedicated to the current affairs, the current events, and insights that all of us need at this time. I must tell you that throughout the weekend, it continues. Today, on Sunday, will be a concluding banquet that will take place out in Edison, New Jersey, at the New Jersey Center, the Convention Center, and it's coincide with a similar event that's taking place in Israel at the same time. And we will be speaking to the people in Israel, and the people of Israel will be speaking to us, and there's an amazing, and I look forward to sharing with you some of the insights. But I think wherever I went, and whatever workshop and presentation, there was a consistent theme that I picked up, and that is, how can a person during this time gather, have special events, have celebrations? How do we balance that with such difficult and confusing times? In fact, someone said to me in my own community, they feel guilty celebrating a wedding, celebrating a bris during these very difficult times. And I heard an answer, many answers, but the one that really touched me was the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, spoke about this very issue just a few days after the Yom Kippur War in 1973, where everybody got together and they had a Farbrengen. A Farbrengen, we all know, is a very joyous event. People say L'chaim, people sing. And here was a few days after the beginning of the Yom Kippur War. How do you bring that together? How do you balance that together? On the one hand, such awesome, troubling times at the same time to sit and have a Farbrengen. And the Rebbe's answer was fascinating. Each and every one of us creates a shadow, right? I'm sure you remember the old classic program, The Shadow Knows. Now, the shadow each of us creates is basically the shadow that we create. So if we create the shadow and it walks to the right, we walk to the right, so it walks to the right. If it goes to the left, it goes to the left. Basically, the shadow imitates what we project, how we move, how we stand, how we walk, how we jump. So it responds to what we're doing. And so too, the Rebbe explains that the King David says in the book of Psalms, Hashem Tilcha, God is your shadow. Basically, the way we conduct ourselves that's how God reciprocates. So we know that joy breaks all boundaries, and all of us do need joy during this time. So there is no contradiction. The way we conduct ourselves, we all know that God responds. So during this time when we have joyous occasions to celebrate, good ones, holy ones, appropriate ones, that only brings back even more joy from Hashem. And that is why we dedicate our program to this special time with really with a time where we must all sit back and think and allow ourselves to separate. We're all ambassadors of truth and caring, but it's very important for us to have a clear mind and not be taken in by the myths and the propaganda and all the other things that confuse us. You see, most of the time evil cloaks itself. It always kind of hides behind a form of apparent righteousness. Think about it, whether it was Lenin, Stalin, Pol Pot, Chairman Mao, that killed millions for what they claimed were just causes that would benefit humankind. And so too today we see many who mask their evil behavior and terrorism with the cloak of religion and faith. To a certain extent, however, the brutal, evil behavior of the Nazis and the Germans towards the Jewish people was an exception to this rule. Here was raw evil, unmasked and unabashed, with no excuses presented and no justification advanced. Like the barbarity unsheathed by the Hamas on October the 7th, 2023, this clear revelation of evil was on world display on the night of Kristallnacht. As you may know, November the 9th, 10th, and during this weekend, during this time in 1938, synagogues were burnt to the ground. Jewish people were killed and arrested and sent to concentration camps. Jewish stores and homes destroyed and vandalized. All of this occurred on that night in November of 1938. And it became clearer to those who wanted to see it that the final solution was going to become a reality. So Kristallnacht was a watershed event in the destruction of the European Jewry. The only question after Kristallnacht was whether anything could be done to save European Jewry from the planned disaster that Hitler and his cohorts wished to visit on the Jewish people. Unfortunately, the practical answer to this question of life and death turned out to be one of helplessness and almost surrender. Therefore, Kristallnacht should have removed the blinders from the eyes of the Western world as to what awaited them a few short months later from Germany. A world war that would destroy tens of millions and destroy Europeans for generations. So part of the tragedy of Kristallnacht is that it did not send the necessary wake-up call to those who could have yet stood up to Germany. And so the deluge arrived. It was not a random event that synagogues were destroyed and scrolls of Torah were desecrated during the Kristallnacht. The Nazi regime in Germany was basically anti-religion and anti-God, and the Jewish people represented and still represent faith and awe of the Almighty. Individual Jews, even though millions of them may not be that involved in Jewish practice and faith, were nevertheless caught in the net of the Jewish faith and the tradition of Torah. Hitler, Yamach Shemoy, stated that the Jewish problem was genetic and not one of individual behavior. Most of the Jewish people at that time in Germany were assimilated, proud Germans who placed their Germanness over their Jewish ancestry. But Jewishness can never be separated from Torah. And if there were those who didn't understand this, the Nazis certainly did. So Kristallnacht was the attack against Judaism, against Torah, against God himself, so to speak. Therefore, Jews were always persecuted not for their own personal behavior or human failings, but for the faith and the value system that they represented. Judaism was the antithesis of all that Nazism and its barbarism stood for. And therefore, Kristallnacht marks the beginning of that all-out war against Judaism, the Jewish people, against Torah, against the God. And we can now say of Kristallnacht what the great martyr of Roman times, Rabbi Hanina ben Tradian, said of the Torah scroll in which he was wrapped and burnt alive. What did he say? He said, "The scrolls and the parchment may burn to ashes, but the letters of Torah still float in the air." Oisios parchos ba'avir. The synagogues and the Torahs of the Jews of Germany were reduced to ashes, and so many were killed. But the words and the values of Torah and the souls of the murdered still float in the air, giving the world no rest and still raising matters of consciousness. Kristallnacht demands of us to strengthen our ties to Judaism and to stand strong on behalf of the values and the lives of Jewish people the world over and in defense of the Jewish state. It is tragic beyond words that Hitler should gain posthumously victory over Torah and all of us. Remember, saying never again is wishful and itself really impractical. Only actions and constructive efforts can guarantee never again as a reality. So we all have a responsibility to ourselves and to our families' future, as well as Jewish history and to destiny, to strengthen our attachment to Judaism and to everything that we stand for. We must remember, as we remember and remind ourselves that this weekend corresponds to that event in 1938, that the fires of Kristallnacht must be converted to fires of Judaism and Jewish life within the souls of all of us. There's fire that destroys and there's fire that warms. It can be constructive or destructive. These choices remain with us, and Kristallnacht and its events focuses our attention on these choices. So may the memory of Kristallnacht light the fire of a greater Jewish future within all of us. Now remember, in the wake of October the 7th, the terror attacks in Israel and the subsequent war, the Jewish community in the United States, we are all witnessing a huge surge in Jewish engagement. According to a new survey just released, and I was part of that effort, this survey conducted amongst Chabad rabbis across America found that the vast majority of respondents have seen an increase in attendance at Jewish programs and services, as well as a heightened sense of Jewish pride, connection to Israel, and a stronger Jewish identity among community members. The survey results paint a picture of a Jewish community that is responding to this fraught moment with a renewed sense of solidarity and faith. Rabbis reported that people are lighting Shabbos candles, purchasing and putting on tefillin, some for the first time, saying the Shema prayer daily, baking challah, wearing identifiably Jewish jewelry such as the Magen David, the Star of David, and attending synagogue more regularly. The respondents noted dramatic growth amongst those who in the past have attended synagogue once a year, if at all, and who had generally expressed disinterest in Jewish life, who are now exhibiting a new desire to connect with their Jewish heritage and other Jewish people. I saw it myself in my own synagogue and the reports that we received from similar Chabad houses across the county. The survey also highlights the emotional impact the recent events have had on Jewish people around the country. Many of the respondents reported that people in their communities are feeling scared and vulnerable, but that this fear has also led to a strengthening of Jewish identity, some of it publicly and, in a public sense, and of course unity. In the words of one of my colleagues, an Illinois rabbi, people are feeling confused about why they care so much. When people are touched to their core is responding in ways people are not used to. With the survey finding that more than 86% of rabbis are seeing an increase in attendance at synagogue and programs, and a staggering 98% seeing an increase in personal practice related to Jewish traditions and observances among community members. It is clear that in the face of rising anti-Semitism, a wide spectrum of Jewish people are choosing to increase in acts of Jewishness as opposed to laying low and hiding their identity. So what was the summary of this fascinating survey made just a few days ago? 77.3% of respondents report that they had seen a stronger sense of Jewish pride and confidence amongst community members. 81.5% of the respondents said that people in their communities have increasingly been feeling scared. 93.4% of the respondents say that they are witnessing a stronger feeling of connection to the Jewish people or desire to connect to other Jewish people amongst community members. 88.2% say that people in their communities have a greater, stronger connection to Israel and her people. 85.8% of the respondents say that community members have been experiencing a deeper connection to their own Jewish identity. So this survey included 211 people, rabbis, were involved in this survey. And it represented communities in all of 50 U.S. states, ranging from cities and towns with robust Jewish infrastructure to areas with a minimal of Jewish presence. In addition to offering a glimpse into the numbers that are driving this Jewish awakening, rabbis were also asked to provide particular anecdotes, if any, pertaining to any observed changes in Jewish practice. The anecdotes paint a powerful picture of the indomitable Jewish spirit and the real stories of real people beyond and behind the survey data itself. Let me give you some examples. One rabbi in Vermont shared that a woman asked where she could purchase a large Magen David, a large Star of David necklace, so she could publicly show it that she's Jewish. Another rabbi from California recounted how a 22-year-old man who had never before in his life celebrated any Jewish activity came to him right after the news of the terror attacks, telling the rabbi he couldn't stop crying. Though he had no prior engagement with the Jewish community, the war, in his own words, reawakened the Jew within him, and he felt compelled to act on it. He has since come to Chabad to put on tefillin for the first time in his life. Let me take you to Florida. Florida rabbi reported that a man who only attends synagogue when he has a yahrzeit or an anniversary of the death of a parent has begun attending Shabbat services every week. He explained that right after the October 7th attack, he resolved to put on tefillin each day. He then realized that he should recite the full prayers. On Shabbat, when he can't put on the tefillin, he decided to attend services. Let me take you to Georgia. Let me tell you what a Georgian Chabad rabbi tells us of a woman who shared with him that she had not lit Shabbat candles in many years, but had dug her candlesticks out of the closet and began lighting them every week on Friday before sundown. These are just a few examples of the many ways in which Jewish people are responding to the recent attack on their brethren in Israel, the war, and the subsequent explosion of anti-Semitism. The survey results strongly suggest that these events have sparked an awakening of Jewish spirit, with the people from all walks of life seeking ways to connect with their Jewish heritage and community. Now, this particular survey was conducted in conjunction with the International Conference of Chabad Emissaries that I mentioned, just that we're now in the middle of. I've taken a break to be able to come to you and share with you that's going on through this weekend. This is the conference of the largest gathering of rabbis in the world, and attending this weekend is more than 6,500 rabbis and Jewish leaders who come to New York from November the 9th through November the 12th. The conference provides a timely platform for these rabbis and Jewish leaders to discuss how to channel this newfound inspiration to combat the global spike in anti-Semitism. Their shared experiences and insights are an invaluable resource for each of us, for all the colleagues, because all of us seek to strengthen our communities and address the unprecedented challenges confronting us at this time. During the Thursday sessions of this international conference that I'm part of, I attended most of Thursday in sessions that related to anxiety during these difficult times. In fact, I took this course. It was a four-hour course to help me understand the traumas and how to understand it for myself and to help the community. So how do we overcome? Let me share something with you that I learned. How do we overcome anxiety during these challenging times with the war going on in Israel and the heaviness Jewish people are experiencing worldwide? Getting out of bed each morning and putting on a smile can basically feel impossible. Over the past few weeks, I've been collecting spiritual tools as well as tips from world-renowned therapists and what I've learned at this convention to help manage anxiety during these precarious times. These tools were helpful to me, and I hope they can be helpful to you as well. So let me share, a basic outline of what I've learned, and for all of us to share. Not any one of the ideas I'm sharing may be the answer. It may be all of them, or maybe just one of them, whichever fits your personality or fits your perspective. Number one, prayer helps. We talk about dealing with anxiety and concerns. We believe that God hears our prayers and listens to our requests. God and only God is in charge of the world, and our prayers help create a real change. Give yourself time each day to pour out your heart to Hashem. Hand Him your burdens and then allow yourself the space and peace to continue throughout your day. From a psychological perspective, the act of prayer increases, I hope this is the right word, serotonin, the happiness neurotransmitter. It also can lower rates of depression and anxiety. Prayer moves us away from flight or fight and allows us to think rationally. Let me share with you the words of Dr. Paul Hockenmeyer, a marriage, family, and addictions therapist, and he explains, when we sit down and engage in prayer or meditation, we're able to shift away from this frightened and stressed survival mode into an intentional state and ultimately re-engage our prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain that rules our executive functioning and enables us to make intelligent, mindful decisions. As Jewish people, we believe there is a preordained plan. Without God and belief in His plan, a person will always struggle for a sense of control. Ironically, giving up the illusion, the control to God, provides us with a feeling of control of our life. Dr. Lizzie Weisinger explains that one way to hand things over to God is through intentional prayer. Part of that practice is taking that need for constant control off your plate. You can say, "Hey, God, you deal with this." Or, "Hey, Hashem, I do not understand what is happening, but I know you have a grand plan." There's a second thing that I learned, that I share with you today. Control what you can. What do I mean? Much of our fear and anxiety stems from feeling a lack of control. And while we cannot control global issues, we can control our attitudes and our reactions. So, choose a mitzvah to perform and dedicate it to the safety of our people. Write a letter of encouragement to an Israeli soldier or to a family member of an Israeli soldier. Donate to Israel and to noteworthy causes. Any amount helps. Speak up and share the truth. Know your facts and be ready to defend them in the face of those who choose hatred. As we all know, a little bit of light banishes a lot of darkness. One small step in a positive direction can be that light. There's a third very special aspect that helps us when dealing with anxiety and depression. Show gratitude regularly. There's a certain lady called Linda Stone, tech visionary and executive at Microsoft and Apple, was giving a presentation to high-level executives. During her talk, she displayed an experimental device that measures heart rate variably. It turned red when the person was experiencing high levels of stress, and flashed green when they calmed down. So she began her talk and attempted to show that her breathing techniques could lower stress, using the device as proof. It should have been a simple demonstration, but as she did one breathing exercise after another, the device stayed stubbornly red while she was on stage. She looked around the audience and took a moment to express her appreciation to those in the crowd who had helped her. And she said her thank yous. The audience, called out as she did those thank yous and said, look, it's flashing green. Expressing gratitude had changed her body's responses more profoundly than any breathing technique could. In our world, Jewish practice is laced with opportunities for gratitude. Upon rising in the morning, the first words that we say, Maidani, thank you. We have hundreds of blessings at our disposal with which we thank God. And even the name for the Jewish people stems from the word Hodoyah, the Hebrew word for gratitude, Hodah. Taking regular stock of multitude of blessings in our lives is an easy and important tool for healthy thinking. Keeping, for example, a gratitude journal or jotting down things to be grateful for each day is a great way to keep the bigger picture in focus. No matter how challenging the situation, we can always find something to say thank you for, thereby lifting our spirits and the spirits of those around us. And there's a fourth on this list. You won't believe this. Thank God for the bad. What am I talking about? When we thank God for bad, we humble ourselves and admit that God has a master plan, one that we may not be privy to. Although counterintuitive, I find this tool to be extremely effective. I know someone who was in Israel when the war broke out. His family rushed into the bomb shelter several times in the span of a few hours. They tried to make it fun for the kids, which were between the age of 2 and 16. What did they do? They played cards, bringing in snacks. But it was hard to mask the fear. After running to the bomb shelter 6 times, they quietly began to whisper thanks to Hashem and said, God, I know you are the master of the universe and you know what's best, so I'm thanking you even though I don't understand. Just saying these words gave them comfort, and they were able to put on a positive face for the young children. In fact, we recently had Jonathan May, one of our members, just came back from Israel. He was there for the holiday of Sukkot, so he came back after this event in the week of October 7th, and he told us how parents entertain their children in the bum shelters. When the bums are being fired, they all start to dance. The adults start to dance and sing. So they lessen the trauma and associate the banging and the noise and the running into the bum shelter with happiness, with joy. When we put this into practice, another shift takes place. We begin to see more good in our daily experiences when we give thanks. Another thing, know your family history. I went into one of the rooms in the hospital where I'm the resident rabbi at the NYU Langone, Long Island Hospital, formerly known as Winthrop. The gentleman who requested the rabbi was so excited to see me, not that he knew me, but he was excited to share with me. What did he share? That he is a descendant all the way back to what is known as Rabbi Pinchas Koritzer, a famous student of the Baal Shem Tov and the Shbala Zayda. He was excited about his family history. We must all be excited and do some background check to realize where each of us come from. We are resilient. Our ancestors faced unfathomable atrocities and yet have had the courage and the strength to rebuild. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Researchers at Emory University discovered that children who knew more stories about their family history displayed greater emotional well-being. They felt better about their identity, and the more they heard that their family went through hardships and thrived, the better adjusted they were. Autonomy comes from feeling that you matter, that you have a purpose and a place, and without you, your family would miss you. We do this on a national level on most Jewish holidays. And every time we talk about our extended Jewish family, all the way back to Mount Sinai. Most of the Jewish history boils down to this. As a people, yes, we've experienced difficult times, and with Hashem's help, we overcame these struggles again and again. When you hear this, we realize that we have a purpose. We realize that each of us are a vital piece of a puzzle going back thousands of years. And all those ancestors are relying on us. They passed the baton all the way down to us. You and me and everyone, we have that baton in our hands that connects us to thousands of years of history. Another important dimension in helping anxiety is, many people are filled with stories that can emotionally paralyze you. But there are also hundreds of beautiful stories of organizations, individuals who are standing with the Jewish people and Israel. So focusing on these amazing stories can provide light and hope. For example, you may have heard of the Novelist restaurant in Charles, Missouri. What do? They koshered their kitchen for one day and donated all the proceeds earned on that day directly to Israel. Elsewhere, citizens and teenagers have gathered stunning amounts of supplies for soldiers in Israel. We too can fight the darkness by finding someone or some organization to give to, either with financial aid, volunteerism, or even sharing, my friends, potential opportunities. Dr. Weisinger explains that when we're anxious, we become stuck in our own minds, which feels really very isolating. When we step outside ourselves and do things for others, we feel accomplished and productive. When we find ourselves drowning in the current waves of chaos and stress, channel that anxiety into something positive, and with Hashem's help, we will all reap these awards. Now, there is an expression in Tachrichim is nishto ken kashenes. Bear with me. The translation of these words are, in burial shrouds, there are no pockets. In other words, you can't take your stuff with you. So what does come with us? The answer is found in the title of the Torah portion that we just read this weekend. It's called Chaya Sarah, which means the life of Sarah. So one would therefore assume that this portion is all about the life of Sarah. It's called Chaya Sarah. The second verse, however, talks about Sarah's passing, and the rest of the portion discusses events that took place after her death. So how could this portion be about the life of Sarah when we have 105 verses that talk about what happened after the life of Sarah? In answering this classic question, we learn a profound life lesson. The life of a righteous person continues even after their physical passing. Our sages tell us that wicked people, even when they're alive, they are considered dead. The wicked have no continuity, no eternity. Righteous people, tzaddikim, on the other hand, even when they pass, they are considered living. The classic example of this teaching is David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. David, the king of Israel, is alive and well. Yet we know, of course, that King David was buried thousands of years ago. Why then do we sing about him being alive and well? You know the song, David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayim. David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayim. David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayim. So why then do we sing about him being alive and well? Hello? He passed away already. Because only his physical body was interred, but his true essence, the real King David, remains alive and well, and we're waiting for Mashiach, a descendant of David, to lead us out of the exile. Another example of this teaching is our patriarch Jacob. The Talmud, quoted in Rashi, that says that our patriarch Jacob never died. Yaakov Avinu lo meis. How come? Just as his children are living, he too is living. So who was Sarah? Who's Sarah? Sarah made many things. She was many things. She was a righteous woman, a prophetess. She was a lady prophetess, a prophet. She's the wife of Abraham. But above all, she was our matriarch. And not only that, she was our first matriarch. It was Sarah who brought about the fulfillment of God's promise that her son Isaac would carry forth Abraham's legacy. For I have known him, says God about Abraham, because he commands his sons and his household after him, that they should keep the ways of Hashem to perform righteousness and justice. As Rashi explains, for I have known, what does it mean I have known? Implies love. To know him is to love him. Why does God love him? Because Abraham and Sarah established continuity for God. And to this day, we are called the children of Abraham and Sarah. Life is not the pleasures that we encounter, because those are transient, passing. What is permanent in life are those things that live forever. That's why this portion is called Chaya Sarah, the life of Sarah, because it teaches us about what is real in life. The transient over versus the eternal. There are two contrasting perspectives regarding reality. One approach suggests that if something cannot be perceived with any of the five senses, then it does not exist. Only if you can see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, or touch it, then it's real. The other perspective is that anything that can be perceived with the senses is temporary. Here today, gone tomorrow. Only intangible experiences, it is argued, can represent eternity. So, 7-layer cake is delicious, but it's not forever. An idea, a belief, a mathematical axiom, 1 plus 1 equals 2, those are forever. This explains why even the mightiest of governments have failed to eradicate certain ideals, values, and aspirations. Chaya Sarah teaches us that the true life of Sarah lies in the good and the godly aspects of life as we know it in the study of Torah, performing of mitzvahs, and living appropriately. These are eternal realities. According to Jewish law, a person must be buried when they pass. In Hebrew, there are 3 different expressions for the word cemetery. One is called Beis HaKvaros, means the house, the place of graves. Life is life, and death is death. When you die, it's over, fatek. Another name for a cemetery is called Beit Olam, a place of eternity. Humankind was created from earth and returns to earth. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Although the body is interred in the ground, the soul, the true consciousness of that person, the essence of that person, especially a righteous person, lives on forever. That is why it is referred to as a place of eternity. Then we have Beis HaChaim, the place of life, another name given for a cemetery. Now that sounds strange. Why call a cemetery a place of life? One might think it's facetious, but it's not. The soul is eternal. The blessings that emanate from that soul are eternal. A person spends 70, 80, 120 years, or in the case of Sarah, she lived for 127 years, and then the body is returned to the earth. But the soul remains alive. The real person continues to live. How? Firstly, by their accomplishments, their mitzvot, and their Torah study. And secondly, through their children, their grandchildren, and all their descendants until the end of time. There's a poignant parable often that comes to mind whenever we study this Mishnah. It's about a man who was summoned by the king. Back then, if the king wanted to see you, it was never a good sign. Overwhelmed with the fear, he sought solace from his 3 closest friends. Listen, he said to his first friend, I received a summons from the king. I'm terrified. Can you accompany me? His friend immediately reassured him, Of course, I'll come with you. I'm your friend. I will walk with you all the way to the capital city, he said. But that's as far as I can go. I hope you understand. He made a similar request of the next friend. Of course, I'll come with you, the friend said, but I can only go until the palace gates. I hope you understand. Finally, he was nervous. He turned to his only remaining friend and implored, You are my dearest friends. Will you please come with me? I'm so scared. In a resolute voice, the devoted friend declared, I will accompany you to the capital city, through the palace gates, and even into the king's court. I will stand by your side, even when the king is interrogating you. I am with you. I will never leave your side. So who are these 3 best friends that a person has? The first friend is a person's wealth and possessions that a person usually amasses in this world, the stocks, the bonds, the security, the real estate. When the time comes for us to depart to the next world, we ask our money to come with us. The money, however, said, Hey, I'll accompany you, but only until the cemetery. Hearses don't have luggage racks. You notice that? Shrouds don't have pockets. You can't take it with you. The second friend is our family. We turn to our spouse, our children, our grandchildren, and siblings, and we plead, Please come with me. Our loved ones assure us, Of course, we'll accompany you. We love you. We'll come to the cemetery and even attend the funeral. We will escort you all the way to your grave. But then, our relative continued, We'll need to go home and eat bagels and eggs and other round things representing the cycle of life. We're going to have a party at the Shiva house. And maybe we'll fight over the inheritance. With a sense of despair, the person exclaims, Hey, I can't take my money with me, and my relatives can't come with me either. So we turn to our only remaining friend, the Torah we studied, the mitzvahs that we performed, the good deeds that we've amassed. The person asks, Will you come with me? The Torah and mitzvahs reply, Not only we will go with you, we will be with you all the way. We will accompany you wherever you go. Let us all be mindful of what is transient and what is eternal. May our acts of kindness and goodness, our Torah study, our performance of mitzvahs, be our only guiding light, illuminating the path of eternity. May we all be blessed to lead lives that are engaged in the pursuit of the eternal. That's why it's so important not to waste time, my friends. There's a teaching from the Rebbe. When you waste a moment, you have killed it in a sense, squandering an irreplaceable opportunity. But when you use the moment properly, filling it with purpose and productivity, it lives on forever. The words of the Rebbe. Many years ago, a product came to the market called death insurance. The problem was that there was no one wanting to buy a death insurance policy. It was a huge flop, until someone had the bright idea to change the name from death insurance to life insurance. A much happier and more optimistic name, even though it was the same thing. That little change, however, turned that product from a dud into a gazillion-dollar business. So Chaya Sarah begins with the death of our matriarch, Sarah. Chaya Sarah literally means, however, the life of Sarah. So is this a switcheroo, a mere marketing gimmick to uplift us, or is it one of the most paradoxical teaching moments? The Talmud explains how those who are righteous, who fill their days in productive and positive ways, are considered alive when they are dead, while those who bring toxicity and negativity into this world are viewed as dead even while they're alive. So it is quite fitting that following the death of Sarah, we focus on the meaning and the influences of her life, who she was and what she accomplished, even though she is no longer living. As you know, Sarah died at the age of 127. Rather than simply tell us that she was 127 years old when she passed, the Talmud describes her lifespan in a very curious way. It says Sarah's lifetime was 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years. And so a year is not a year, is not a year. Just think of 2 hours watching an engrossing show feels the same as 2 hours sitting through a boring lecture. In one case, the time flies, whereas in the other, time stands still. Time is relative. It is defined more by its quality than its quantity. You know, there is a mystical idea that our days on earth will ultimately be comprised of the garments that clothe our soul after we pass away. These garments are those of thought, speech, and action. The quality of these garments will not be determined by the years of our life, but by the life in our years. In other words, we stitch together these holy garments from our good deeds, our mitzvahs, and moments that we've created, that we endow with the quality of ultimate meaning and therefore infinite reality. For example, someone could live to a ripe old age and yet, sadly, have lived a life of such little significance and substance that his or her soul could be naked or virtually naked in the next world. Each day of our lives presents us with endless possibilities. We constantly stand at the crossroads of choice. How many times have I thought, sorry God, I have no time to pray. I'm just so busy. Catch you later, maybe tomorrow. Thinking I am choosing reality, getting stuff done, I fritter away many moments of time that at the end of the day evaporate into like smoke. It's like consuming empty calorie junk food instead of nutrient-rich food filled with vitality. I think I'm eating, but nutritionally, I'm not. It's okay once in a while, but I certainly wouldn't make a habit of it. On the other hand, when we consciously embrace our lives moment by moment, cognizant of the power and the significance of our choices, mindfully aware of our words and our deeds, we can weave together holy garments that will wrap us like a hallowed shawl. The Hebrew word for sacrifice, namely sacrifices, that were brought in the Holy Temple, the word is korban, Korban, korban. The root of that word is karev, which means close, 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 close. Therefore, we are to understand that the purpose of bringing a sacrifice is to come closer to God. And we have opportunities every single moment to actively move towards where we want to be. The holiest offering that was brought into the temple, however, was called the ketores, the incense offering. The word itself means to bond or to connect. It represents the weaving together of different elements to form one unified entity that does not come undone. It is here that I recognize how I am inextricably linked and interconnected with God. While I do my part by coming close in my thought, speech, and action, my soul is already there and bonded. So in doing so, since the soul does not die, it's as if we don't truly die. Sarah physically died. That's the truth. But the opposite was also true. As a woman whose life was alive with the fullness of her choices, Sarah also lived, as death only marked a new form of her life. Sarah embodies the idea that we must not merely count our days, but we must make our days count. So make the most of every moment. Let's make our moments holy. Make our moments endure by weaving them into a sacred reality. By understanding the infinite power and potential of each moment, we can together the fabric of our life so that our spiritual loveliness will be there to embrace and clothe our eternal soul. All I can say is happy weaving. So, let's do this. Let's internalize and actualize. Starting with the moment we wake up, list 4 small things you can incorporate into your day to infuse it with meaning and holiness. Think morning, afternoon, evening, before bed. This could be a few minutes of meditation upon arising, giving gratitude for the food that we are eating for breakfast, dedicated focus about those who love, that you love in your life, appreciation that you have a roof over your head. The goal is to stop, think, and actively acknowledge these things. Number 2, write down something you struggle with staying positive about it. It could be physical, it could be spiritual. Then, tapping into the garments of one's soul, commit to shifting our thoughts, our speech, and action about the struggle in a very practical way on a daily basis. Write down a small step that you can take, and then make sure to think about it. Say it out loud, and do something towards being positive. So, in this parshas, in the Torah portion of Chayei Sarah, we read about Isaac's marriage to Rebekah after the passing of her mother. The verse says that Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted for the loss of his mother. On this verse, Rashi comments, it is the way of the world that as long as a person's mother is alive, he is attached to her. But as soon as she dies, he finds comfort in his wife. On the day that the husband lost his mother, God had already set events into motion that would lead to her marriage 5 years later. When Isaac brought Rebekah into his tent, though, it was more than just finding comfort for his loss of his mother. Rashi explains, he brought her into her tent, and behold, she was Sarah, his mother. What does that mean? She became the likeness of Sarah, his mother, for as long as Sarah was alive, a candle burnt from one Shabbos Eve to the next. A blessing was found in the dough, and a cloud was attached to the tent. When she died, these things ceased, and when Rebekah arrived, they resumed. As soon as Rebekah entered the tent, Isaac observed that she emulated his mother. Sarah excelled in fulfilling the 3 mitzvahs of a woman: lighting candles on Friday night, baking challah, and separating a portion for God, and family purity. These are laws that govern a couple's intimate relationship. For this, she merited the 3 miracles. What were they? Her candles burnt from week to week. Her dough never spoiled, and a heavenly cloud hovered over her tent. Why was it not sufficient for Rashi to merely point out that Rebekah's deeds were like Sarah's? Why did he stress that she also merited the same miracles as her mother-in-law? Furthermore, after Sarah's passing, surely her husband Abraham continued to light the Shabbos candles in her absence. Why did he not merit to have his candles miraculously burn throughout the week? According to our sages, when a man and a woman marry, they enter into a partnership. The role of the man is to bring home the wheat, so to speak, while the woman prepares it for eating. His job is to conquer, to scour the world for necessary raw materials, and her job is to take the materiality and transform it, to use it to create a noble, godly home. This task is reflected in the 3 mitzvahs of a Jewish woman. By lighting Shabbos candles, she brings holiness of the Shabbat into her home. By separating the challah before baking bread, she brings holiness into the food. And by keeping the laws of Taharat HaMishpacha, family purity, she brings holiness into the body itself. The miracles that both Sarah and Rebekah experienced represent the power that they had to draw holiness into this world and to extend that holiness beyond the boundaries of their own homes. Abraham, as great as he was, he did not have that function. His candles shone with an ordinary light. When Sarah and Rebekah lit candles, the holiness of those lights illuminated the world from one Shabbat to Shabbat and continued to shine for eternity. This is the power that they bequeathed to their daughters. All Jewish women for all times, even if we do not literally see our flames miraculously burning for the entire week, their spiritual power, their warmth and illumination remains. According to tradition, Rebekah married Isaac at an early age, yet her candles already had this miraculous power. As Jewish women, it is their greatest privilege they have to continue this chain and to transmit to our children their mission to light up the world with the candle of mitzvah and the light of Torah. May Hashem bless us that we should, through the merit of all these candles and of all the mitzvahs that we do, that we see peace everywhere in the world, and the whole world will be able to appreciate each other, and ultimately a world that we will never accept, that can be filled with hatred, but love and caring and appreciation, that every one of us are created in the image of God. Have a wonderful week. Stay well, and all the best. 1, 2, 3, 4.